Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Alien Addicts. How are we all doing on this fine, luxurious evening? Now, we've got a guest that I had on by accident. It seems like a year ago, but it wasn't. I think it was about 6 months ago. My good friend Rich, who he did some training at the Monroe Institute, where he learned to do what was it, Rich? I've forgotten the name of it again.
Out-of-body experience. Remote
viewing. That's the one, because I'm getting them mixed up. I always get astral projection and remote viewing mixed up. Astral projection is the one where you kind of leave your body, and you can, if you turn around, can you see your body?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Where's my background gone? Things are going. There we go. Right. This is for you. I scoured the internet for that, my friend. But yeah, you kind of saved the day on the last video that we did. Well, the first video that we did, was it about 6 months ago?
It was a few months ago. Yeah, definitely. I think it was before Christmas, somewhere around there.
I was having Alien.
I think my daughter. Yeah.
Sorry, what was I going to say?
My daughter's watched it loads of times. She really enjoyed it.
My wife, it's probably my wife's favorite video, because she was mesmerized by it. She found it extremely interesting. But the whole subject that we started off was going along the lines of remote viewing, but you briefly kind of started the interview and speaking about your experience with the outer body.
Yeah.
And you spent some time in China at the Monroe Institute. That's where you did the learn to remote view. But we kind of we tiptoed around the kind of the outer body experience. So I wanted to get you back on to talk about that, because and I kind of want to, I didn't put it in the title because I don't want the video to be put to the back of the list, but when people mention out of body experiences, sometimes the whole the alien aspect comes into it. Are people being taken by UFOs sometimes? But there is a difference between the two, and I think there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I had an out of body experience." No, you were abducted by aliens. But there's a clear difference between the two.
Definitely. I think what we need to do, as I say, before we start, is to take a little bit of a step back, because I think if you spend any time on a UFO forum or anything like that, you will get a lot of disparate groups that call a lot of different things or basically call the same thing by different names. So you'll have people talking about aliens being angels or demons. You'll have people talking about shadow people and all of this other stuff. And I think very often we are talking about the very, very same thing almost all of the time, which is the evolution of your consciousness. Now, to me, what is your consciousness? So that's the fundamental question that you start off with. Now, according to Tom Campbell, who I subscribe to a few of his theories, but not all of them, he did a lot of work describing what your consciousness is, and he's a physicist, and he called your consciousness a self-modifying model of reality. Okay, so your mind is within your mind, held in the electrical signals of and the chemical signals in your brain, is your consciousness. And your consciousness itself is not physical. Okay, your body takes in data through your senses. So your body is like an antenna. Your eyes, your ears, they take in vibrations or photons of light, etc. And your body and your brain integrates those that data and turns it into information, and that's projected around you like a bubble, and that is your consciousness. It makes up your senses, it makes up your memories, and it's also made up of your imagination. And I say imagination because it's really, really important. Your imagination is incredibly important to your consciousness. We use it every day. We scoff it. We sit there and we say, oh, it was just a dream and things like that. But at the end of the day, we need an imagination. And the reason why we need an imagination is if you ever want to plan something, you've first got to imagine it before you can actually do it.
Yeah.
If you worry about risk, you are using your imagination. You're extrapolating into the future
To
and
think of the
thinking,
worst case
oh, this could
scenario.
happen. Exactly. Yeah. So your imagination is hugely, hugely powerful, and it shapes your thoughts now all of the time. And now, along with all of this, they also believe, and this is the belief again, that there are aspects of your imagination that are influenced by other data. Where people collect that data from is a moot point, if you know what I mean. It's hotly contested, and how that comes in. So if we understand that our bodies and our minds and our consciousnesses are designed to keep us alive and plan to exploit resources and also to mitigate risks, and that's what our consciousness does. It's a map, it's a model of reality. Now, to take a step further and say how malleable is that model of reality, just taking a thought experiment for a while. So if I was to tell you, okay, you don't have to shut your eyes or anything like that, but just imagine where you are, sat or stood where you are. Now imagine that you are expanded to you're much taller, and step outside and you can look at your house. Okay, you're very large and you can do that. You can do that very quickly. Now then you can make yourself grow even more until you imagine that you can put your arms around the whole planet. And we can all do that quite easily. It's very, very easy for people to do that, to think that. And this is what we talk about when we say that
When
your
you say, sorry,
consciousness.
you
Sorry, go
mean,
on.
so you mean to imagine that is easy?
Imagine it. You don't have to be it. Imagine it, and we can do that. And what you have to understand is how flexible and how powerful your consciousness and your imagination is, and that's why we also say that your consciousness is an unbound model of reality. That is, it can become as big as you want it to be. Yeah, as big as you can imagine, that's as big as your consciousness can be. Okay.
Is that why?
Go on.
Sorry, is that why when, because just to take the audience back that have probably that may have not seen you before on Alien Addict,
Mm-hmm.
but when you were talking about your first experience with this being 6-year-old, do you think because children have bigger imaginations that they discover this quite early?
Exactly, and this is why it's so important that children go to school at a young age, because the mind is still sort of like malleable, but at the same time, the mind is also when children go to school, they get given a specific corridor to go down, and it's very often more about making them useful for employment and to be good citizens and good things like that. They are not necessarily taught to be as unbound as they can be. So very often you will find that the kids that are naturally unbound, the ones that with bigger imaginations and things like that, they end up going down creative routes. And then there are some that can't go down the creative routes they should have done, but they end up in the UFO community. And I almost guarantee that most people that are in the UFO community are probably frustrated creatives to a certain extent, because they have the big imagination and they can they can extend because they haven't been limited as much. Now, winding it back to the out of body experience, because it's really, really important. What we do, what the real benefit of doing these states like out of body experience, like remote viewing, is the ability to expand your consciousness, to improve the quality of your consciousness. And you can do that by going on journeys. And then you have people like the shamans. They take people on shamanic journeys where they might bang drums and rattle stuff at you, and it's all about leading you on a path that allows you to experience different feelings and different states of reality. And it's exactly the same thing. There's a chap called Byron Metcalf who used to do a lot of work. I think he still does with the Monroe Institute, and he shows it with a drum and he beats it, and people go off and they can have experiences based on that as well. So
just quickly, how long did you train at the Monroe Institute? Was it a month?
I was there just for a week. Okay, but what I did was I did their correspondence course for about, I think it's about 4 years before I actually went. And you can buy their CDs, or they were CDs at the time that I bought, but before then they were tapes. You had to order a cassette tape. I remember seeing them advertised back in the 80s.
And for the audience that might not know what we're talking about there, just from to go back to the last interview, the Monroe Institute, that is where you learned to do remote view.
It's where I went to relearn how to do remote. Well, I learned to do remote viewing, yes. But my main reason was I wanted to experience the out of body experiences that I had when I was a kid, and that's what switched me on to the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute have a very, very clear syllabus and a set of CDs, and there are 7 sets of CDs that go discovery, threshold, freedom, adventure, exploring focus 2015, and Odyssey. And there's lots and lots of different tools that you learn about to help you with your life. And it's really, really interesting stuff to ingest, and you ingest it at your own pace. If you go onto hemisync.com, you can order it all as a download. I think it's about 500 quid.
Wow.
Yeah,
you were saying cheap last time about how expensive the courses are. But so you discovered them to kind of rediscover something that you had lost in terms of being able to travel outside your body.
Yeah, and we're going back to this idea that children's minds are a lot more expanded, and we're crammed in.
Briefly, before you move on to explaining this, How old were you? Because you were 6 years old when you first discovered that you could do this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you told your father, and your dad said you're probably just dreaming. But at what
Yeah.
age was it that you lost it?
It probably wouldn't have been much further past 7, really. It was
So it lasted for a
yeah.
year.
Yeah,
But it
literally, and I was
must
doing
have
it for a while. Go
but it
on.
must have been that much of an impact for you to
Well, yeah,
want
it
to
did. It did. It
find it
had a
in
huge, yeah, it had a huge unplugging impact on me. I'll give you, for instance, I say, because I can talk about it in a little more detail now, because we've got some more time. So what I would find is that I'm rising slowly out of my bed, and it was slowly. Um, my out of body experiences as a youngster were a lot slower than they are now. Um, but what would happen is I would literally just come just very, very slowly, and I'd head towards the ceiling, and I would get right up against the ceiling, and I'd go around the light fitting, and off down onto the through my door, down the landing, down the stairs, and I'd slip between the top of the banister and the roof and the ceiling, and I'd slide in where my parents were sat watching television, and I would just get into that room, and then I would kind of realize that I shouldn't be there. So I would sort of pull myself back. It was almost like if my parents would see me, I would be in trouble for sneaking down. So then what I did was I decided, well, if I can do this, maybe I can go out of the window. So I would go out of the window, and I would fly around the back garden. And I would never go out of the back garden because I wasn't allowed out of the back garden. But I would enjoy hovering over. I used to have 3 cherry blossom trees at the bottom of the garden. It was beautiful big trees. One of them that I used to, well, 2 of them I used to climb, and I tried to build a tree house of it once. But as I say, I was floating above the top of the cherry blossom trees, and I would do that loads of times. I loved doing that. It was great, and I
Can I
really
ask,
enjoyed
when
that.
you realized that you wasn't dreaming, when was the kind of like, I know for a fact that wasn't a dream? When was that moment?
Well, it wasn't that I didn't know it was a dream. It was my dad that told me it was a dream, and then so when I experienced it again, I realized that while I was out of the window, I was just out of the window and going into the garden, that I realized I could still feel the bed under myself. And I thought to myself, oh, right, okay, so this is just a dream. And I zipped back into my body, and that was it. I didn't try it for a long time. It was only when I started reading about the subject that I became involved. I became aware of the concept of what they call bilocation. And what bilocation means is that you have a feeling that you're in 2 places at once.
Right.
And that made me think, now hang on a minute, maybe there was more to it um, than I originally believed, and that made me want to explore whether there was something more to it. But that was probably after I'd been to China and had the epiphany where I saw the picture. For those that didn't see the other interview, much further down the line, I was 30. I was in 31. I was in China, and I was in the White Cloud Temple, and I was wandering around there, and I saw a tapestry with some cherry blossom trees and a man lying horizontally above them, and that reminded me of my of my experience as a child, and it piqued my interest in that. So I asked my Tai Chi master about it. He told me that ancient martial artists did practice out of body experiences, and that made me think about doing more research on it. So it was then I found out about the Monroe Institute. I found out about concepts like bilocation and evolution of consciousness and all of this good stuff. And I started looking into it in earnest, and it's led me here.
Uh, So when we leave our bodies, and
Mhm,
I was having a conversation with David, the guy that's been on a few times, blurred out, because
mhm,
I've spoken to him privately a couple of times as well, because I've not been sleeping very well, and I had a weird dream the other night. I was telling him about it, and I think I remember telling you. Yes, I did. Yeah, I did tell you. I told somebody else about when my son couldn't sleep,
yeah.
and I was I, I got into bed with him, fell asleep, but then the next thing I know, I'm outside floating up,
Mhm,
uh, and then my son jolted, uh, and I did at the same time. I don't know who did it first, but we both woke up, uh, and he said that he couldn't move, and
mhm,
he was He was a bit freaked out. He's been having a few night terrors. But I asked David about uh, lucid dreams, out of body experiences, and
mhm.
he said, "Have you ever tried to turn around and look at yourself?" So, have you done that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that loads. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Really, really interestingly, when I was a child and I was doing it, what it felt like was when it almost felt like my skeleton was separating from my skin. That's what it felt like. And when I looked back, I could see myself, but it felt like I was smaller. I was a smaller component of that, like something inside had gone out. Um, as an adult, it's different. I don't have much of an awareness of my body as I've left. It almost feels like sometimes it feels like amorphous jelly, like I don't actually have any body at all. Uh, and another time, I just feel it just feels like I'm a single point wandering around. You know, it. I don't know what that's about. It's just slightly. It's just been different. That's all. Maybe there was a stronger um, residual body feeling that I had when I was a child.
Did you see yourself when when you were a child, or is it recently that you've started to turn around and see yourself?
Um, recently, the,
Do you do that
the
to
real
check
funny
if you're
one is.
dreaming, or is it just kind of like I like to? It's quite interesting just to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, it's not really that interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's just me and the dog lying on this, something like that. But the real interesting one is that that when you find it's like when you separate, you're all of a sudden looking and it's you're looking at something and you're thinking, God, this is fascinating. And what is it? It's something really prosaic, like your um, skirting board or something like that. You're just looking at something for ages, and then it slowly dawns on you that you're having an out of body experience, and that you're looking like that. Other times, when I want to do it more consciously, what I feel when especially when I'm in bed, that my eyelids have become translucent. I don't know whether my eyes are open or not, but all of a sudden I start to be able to see the rest of the room around me, but my eyes still feel shut. That's when I know that I'm starting to uh, separate, if you like. That's the first step for me. It feels like my eyes are open because I can see, but my eyes are definitely shut.
I asked you this in the last interview, and we kind of briefly, you mentioned something about um, something trying to stop you. Because I asked you if you'd
Mm,
ever had a negative experience with this.
yeah.
So, for anybody that might, because I mean, I noticed my good friend Rich. He's kind of, I know he's been trying to do this for a while, and he says that it isn't real, and that people that.
Well, It,
So
it
what
isn't
would you
real. It
say?
just feels like it. Dreams are cool like that. Come on, people. Well, okay. What I would say is that the phenomena is real, um, and whether whether you choose to use it for your own purposes, or whether you just choose to accept it for what it is, that they both have value. If you choose to reject it, and you get some kind of um, feeling of superiority from rejecting it, that's good. There's the only thing that I think is bad is if you start to become fearful because of it or entrenched in it. This is about evolution of your consciousness, really, and where that leans you. Once again, I don't necessarily think these states are actually what is happening. I believe these are ways of your mind telling you to expand your field of awareness in one way or another. I think the whole of the human race needs to expand its consciousness. I think that the internet and technology has narrowed us down to a very, very narrow bandwidth, and we are all competing in that bandwidth. Unfortunately, we need to broaden our outlook, and I think this is really important for us to do that.
We were talking about this before. So when you trained in China, you were
Hmm.
telling me something about these. There was a group of they did it kind of in a room where, and they had guards on the door. Is that right? Where
Oh yeah, that was a legend. They there was talk of martial arts masters who would go and remote view, or rather do astral projection, and what they would end up doing, and they would do it as a meditation. And they would post their top student on the door with the instructions that if anybody was to come in and try and wake them, they would kill them. But that was just their belief. As I say, all of this is around beliefs, and it's what you want to do with it. Um,
have you ever been woken up
uh,
while you're in the middle of,
mm,
like, not woke yourself up,
no, I
but
don't think. Oh yeah.
somebody come
Oh
and
no, I don't think I have. No,
no?
no,
But you don't
the,
believe that can happen. You don't believe that you could die
no.
through.
I genuinely think this is the state itself is probably an extension of your imagination, your ability to plan, and your ability to expand your consciousness. I think this has its importance. I think sometimes when people are communing with angels, spirits, whatever you want to talk about, that's a part of their consciousness saying to them, you need to expand, you need to grow. I genuinely think that this is part of your uh, it's almost like, for the want of a better word, it's a greater part of your conscience. So whereas your conscience might sit there and say, well, you messed that up, didn't you? Well, this is a different part of your mind saying grow. And I think it does it in lots of different ways.
So somebody who's, I mean, we speak quite well. We speak on the Patreon, we speak on Skype, and what got you into the channel originally was the UFO phenomena.
Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to ask there is, for somebody who's very spiritual, seems very spiritual to me, where does that come into things with you? What spikes your interest with the whole?
Well, when I was doing the Monroe Institute stuff, I think I got a couple of years into it, and I started to get I started to get images of an eagle flying overhead. And I would see this all the time if I was doing any dream or something like that. Whatever dream I was in, this eagle would fly overhead, always, huge eagle. And at the same time, or a similar time, I started to become obsessed with looking to the sky, and I couldn't go anywhere without. And this was at a time when I wasn't driving either. I was walking everywhere because I was living in Manchester, so I could wander around. And interestingly
not many
enough,
stars in the sky
what I
over
think,
Manchester.
no, definitely not. A lot of rain.
Yeah.
And I can only think that your mind works in metaphors. And I think what this eagle was kind of a symbol of perhaps an experience of some kind to do with UFOs, because I just got, and I can't say that I've communed with aliens or anything like that. I've never been abducted. I've never had an abduction experience. When people talk about these things like the shadow people, I've seen 3 shadow people who appear at the bottom of my bed quite often, and I get the impression of people walking around at the foot of the bed, and it's not the missus, you know. So, but I've never abducted. I've never seen an alien. I've remote viewed something that kind of looked alienish, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's only just because I decided to remote view an alien. So I saw something, and that's about it.
Okay, so let's tell us about that. Before, I want to know about the shadow people. That really does interest me because I think I've seen them myself. So,
well, so the alien that I saw, and literally this was 2 weeks ago, and it was just an outline. If you look at your Alien Addict logo, I didn't see the eyes. The head was narrower, but still elongated. And it had a kind of mouth like that went out. Not like tentacles, but like a flap that moved out like that. And it was doing that. And that's all I saw. It was just an outline, and then it went.
And was this in the same state of
remote viewing aliens?
So this is remote viewing. This is not astral projection.
Not an abduction. No. Not an objection. This was just me. All right, let's have a go. And that's what I saw. I saw like a very narrow outline of a head, small shoulders, and a mouth that was moving upwards and outwards, like almost like a I don't know, it's hard to say. It's kind of like that in its movement. It was weird. So
So almost like the
that's the only
mouth
time.
is a slit across that way rather than
It's a slit
vertical
like that, and it was almost like a beak
beak.
type thing in the way it moved out like that. It was talking, but it was almost like it had a big top lip and it was moving outwards. Very strange.
But you couldn't make it out.
No, I couldn't. It wasn't clear. That's my only time I've ever tried to remote view an alien, funnily enough.
So you actually went out to actually try and figure out what an alien looks like.
Yeah. I just said, okay, let's put it out there. Let's see what I can see. So I gave it a go, just for it, because normally when I do these things, I just, very often I just become absent-minded and go to sleep. But that was the only time and that's the only time I came up with something. As I say, it was about 2 weeks ago, I think.
So you mentioned the shadow people. Now this does really intrigue me because one, I think I've seen them myself, but out of a lot of the people that I've interviewed, people always tend to talk about these shadow people. People I know have talked about the shadow people. My wife, in fact, has talked about the shadow people.
Okay, well, it's quite simple for me. What happens is I'm lying in bed. There's two distinct feelings, and the first feeling is that there are people walking at the foot of the bed, and they're generally, if I'm lying down, they're generally coming from my left towards the right, and they assemble in a three in a line, roughly where at a tangent away from the foot of the bed. And I'm aware dimly of one at my 3 o'clock as well, but I can't see that, and I'm not allowed to look in that direction. I can only look at the three that are at the foot of the bed. Now, what I see is three very, not hugely tall, I would say about mid 5 foot, 5'5", something like that. They're not huge, but they're not small. They're thin, they're in black, and it's fairly tight fitting. I don't see a head. I can't see that. That's in shadow, as is their hands. But they're just black and they're thin. Not frightening in any way. They're just observing.
This has happened twice.
It's happened loads of times, that one. As I say, it's just a dream, I think, but that's what I see. And I'm only sort of like relating this so that can other people say, is this what they've seen? And that's the only way we can do this, is to talk about this and have a discussion.
We were saying that before the show.
Yeah.
Somebody has a
'cause to me,
question I've just seen pop up. Sorry, what were you going to say before?
no, go for it. Go for it.
So we've got this. Can you ask if remote view? I'm sure you can only do that if you have been there before.
Oh, interesting. Well, if you
to the
look
guys
at
in the
some of
comments, I do apologize if I miss stuff, but when I'm with a guest, it's hard to kind of look at. But I love you all very much. Sorry, go on, Rich.
That's a really good question, Stephen. And what I would say is that it's a very interesting, and it's something that I've always wondered about myself. The reason being is that if you look at some of the, I think it's the Project Stargate documents, they've been trying to remote view places that nobody's been to. For instance, I think Joe McMoneagle was involved in remote viewing on Mars, I believe, and they were looking at Mars millions of years ago. They'd seen a base on there, and they'd also got impressions of people that there'd been a civilization there, and they'd had some kind of cataclysmic event. So how can you remote view where you haven't been before? According to them, they can. I don't know, as I say, I don't know what the limitations are, but for me personally, my understanding of consciousness is that you can remote view as big as your model of reality is. It's as simple as that. If you've got a big model of reality, your remote view extends to that. If you don't, then you don't.
When you've just made me think of something there. So when you are in remote viewing something, is it always present time, or can you? Well, no, sorry. I know you can. You can do the future, but can you do the past?
Yeah, because as I say, I've seen documents that have shown people have remote viewed the past, and the future. People do it. The best way of remote viewing is to have two people. You have one person actually doing the viewing, and you have another person that's a controller. And what they'll do is they will either before the session starts or during the session, they will give their remote viewer a target to view. And then what they will do is they will either travel there, or they will use whatever technique they need to get to the place and the time specified. And when you create a target, you have to be specific about where you're looking, and you have to be specific about when you're looking as well. So they can be precise as possible. And then what happens is whoever's doing the remote viewing relays it back, and they have to relay it in the most objective way, and try not to interpret it themselves. Let the person that's controlling it interpret it, because they can look at it dispassionately. Okay.
You get this?
Does your imaginative imagination astral project? If so, what is the limitations? Oh, good grief. As I say, this is a state of intense creativity. It is what it is. When we go back to your consciousness as a model of reality, yeah, your astral projection is as big as your model of reality. If you're somebody that can stretch your model to Mars, Jupiter, Europa, anything like that, yeah, you can. If you can stretch there, you can go there, because you are mining your model of reality that's in your head.
So it has to be something that you kind of already. Does it have to be something that you already know about? For example,
I think so. Yeah.
could you project to I don't know, an unknown universe, for example, you something that you have no idea about? Is it always something that you know about? So it's always like Pluto, Mars, the moon, whatever. It is something that you actually have knowledge of the place. You might not have been there, or definitely not been there physically, but you
Well,
have.
there are people that talk about other universes. It's not something I particularly subscribe to. So If somebody asked me to go to another universe, I'd go, there's only one universe, the universe. But there are people that talk about different locales, they call them, whether we're running into my limits of my belief now, because my belief is that there's only one universe and this is only one reality, and that we are journeying through our unbound consciousness, and our consciousness can get as big as we can imagine it to be. So if somebody can imagine alternate universes, parallel universes, Akashic records, all of this stuff.
You don't
Can
subscribe
talk
to
about
that?
No, I don't. Well, it's not something that resonates me, because I don't have an experience that backs that up. To be honest, I wouldn't knock what other people do, because there are other people that might be.
No, it's just
better than me.
interesting that we've come on to that, because within the UFO field,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people now that are talking about these things being from, different, like maybe a dimension that is literally here,
Yeah.
kind of with us.
Oh yeah.
So they
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
but you don't think that's the case
Well, my point of view about dimensions is that okay, we have three dimensions. We have three spatial dimensions currently to describe our universe, and we have another dimension, which is time. We're always going one direction in time, so we have four dimensions for our space. Okay, now there are other theories, particularly to do with supersymmetry and superstring, whereby you need more dimensions to explain some of the phenomena that they're talking about. The minimum amount of dimensions that they talk about physically is 10. So we're talking about 11 dimensions, 10 physical and time. I kind of subscribe to that. And the reason why I subscribe to that is because my understanding of of quantum physics, to do with the variations of particles and waves. So you know about the particle wave particle duality, with the dual slit experiment.
Well, when I say
think,
know about
yeah,
it, I'm aware of it. I don't know about it.
What I think happens is that because we've got 10 physical dimensions instead of 3, we only need 3 to describe our space. But a particle that doesn't interact, a particle that is moving but doesn't interact, is spread out, not in 3 dimensions but the 10 dimensions. Okay, and because those dimensions are not used, and they're collapsed, and they might collapse on each other, on themselves, the particle may end up interacting with itself, and thereby acting like a wave, because it's more spread out. So it's only when you observe it. So the only pretext of this is that observation is an interaction. If you can observe a particle, then it conforms to 3D space, and it becomes a particle, and it behaves like a particle. If you don't observe it, you are not interacting with it, and it is spread across the 10 physical dimensions, and it behaves like a wave. That's why I think we need more physical dimensions. But I don't believe that people or other alternative realities exist in those dimensions. There are just 7 dimensions that have physically collapsed, because we don't need those to describe 3D space.
Going back to, because this brings us back in line with what we started talking about with the being able to leave your body, but also the lucid dream, because I kind of know what Hobber Mallow's on about there, because these lucid dreams, I've had those as well, and they've been extremely weird. But when he's saying here that I can alter it.
Hmm.
You,
Okay. So, yeah. So lucid dreaming is different in as much as you're in a dream, you're aware of a dream, and you can control it. Um, so the difference between that and remote viewing is that you are very much passive. You are just collecting information, and when you are astrally projecting, you are still just collecting information, but you require the illusion of movement to believe that you are getting that information. Um, as I say, your consciousness uses lots of metaphors to influence you in the right way, and I think so. What a lucid dream is your ability to firstly become awake in your dream, secondly to become aware that you are dreaming, and once you're awake and you're aware, then you can influence it. um, Lucid dreaming is the most fun that you can have.
oh yeah,
In my view, I've had some fantastic times doing lucid dreaming. My daughter's good at it as well. We have lots of chats about it. Um, and very often people fly in their dreams as well while they're lucid, and that's when people sometimes go, "Are you having an out of body experience?" No,
this
you
is what
can
I was going
fly
to
in your
ask.
dream. Yeah.
So there must be people out there that can project themselves,
Hmm.
but they might just be thinking, you know what, it is just a lucid dream.
Yeah. 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 And
Are
as I
the
say,
two
and then yeah,
are the two
yeah,
very similar?
they're similar. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, in as much as you the di- but the main difference is that when you're astral projecting, um, you are very much passive. You will just be observing, and to me, what tends to happen is with a lucid dream, it's not it's a more vivid picture, but it tends to be flatter. It's almost like I'm watching a screen when I'm dreaming.
So so Stephen's question that he's kindly paid for there. Thank you, mate.
Nice one.
So with remote viewing, I understand the Cold War attempts. So
Hmm.
I mean, I've watched documentaries about that where that they were looking at trying. They had people trying to almost like it's like the sci-fi
Yeah.
spy, isn't it?
Oh
But
yeah.
this
What's that?
is very
Yeah.
much a real thing.
So yeah, this happened. The movie, The Men That Stare at Goats. I
Goats,
think that
yeah.
was one of the movies on it specifically, and that was one of the more weirder ones. Um,
It's like
yes, there was a lot of
Jim Shannon. Jim, is that his
Jim
name?
Channon. Jim
Shannon, that's it.
Channon. Yeah, yeah, and the New Earth Battalion, which is
Yeah.
what he set up. Um, okay, so yes, there was some disinformation going on. My understanding was that the Americans tried to um, disinform the Russians that they were doing psychic spies. So the Russians started doing psychic spies, and then when the Americans found the Russians were trying to do psychic spies, they then had to do that as well, just in case it turned out to be right. Um, what tends to happen with all of this is that, and I think I went into it with the other one, so apologies, Steve, if you haven't caught up with that one. But what you find when you're doing these things with remote viewing is that the information that you bring back is that obfuscated, um, that it's not really useful. what you might find is when you bring back the information, let's say 85 to 95% of it could be wrong, but there's that other percentage of it that's correct, but you don't necessarily know which is right and which is wrong until you go and look and find out. At that point, then you can come back and go, well, that part of it was correct, the rest of it was wrong or close. And at which point then you go, but how useful was that to us if we can't act on that information because we only know part of it's right?
Because you
So what I'm
said
trying
when
to
you
say is,
sorry,
that people are partly right, but it's not useful because you don't know what part of it's right.
because you mentioned this in the last interview that you wasn't convinced even after spending the time at the Monroe Institute,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you had the was it 2009 that you went there?
yeah. 2009. I made two predictions that came true.
The ship,
Yeah, the ship sinking and the tsunami.
but even after that, you said you wasn't convinced with it. You said,
No,
you know
no.
what, it's just coincidence. It could be just coincidence. So, do you still think that to this day, or do you ever look back at that and think, you know what, I definitely did predict that?
Well, the the warship. I don't know how often warships are sunk. It could have been a warship that could have been scuppered. I don't think so, but it was just say it had been definitely hit. It was taking evasive maneuvers, and it sank. Um, the one where everything was rushing towards me. Well, that could have been, as I said before. I didn't get that it was a tsunami. I just got that there was something horrendously powerful rushing towards me, and there was no way I could stop it. That could have been a hurricane. And how many hurricanes and typhoons are there every year? 20 or 30, on the planet. So it could be that, or it could not be. You know what I mean? You could still sit there and say, if there wasn't a tsunami, there could have been a big hurricane that year, and I could have easily gone, oh well, it was that hurricane then, or it was that typhoon that happened. It once again, it's the information's there, but you only you only know when you know. And at that point, then how much of that information is useful to you? It's just not.
So,
Yeah,
astral projection and remote viewing, them two seem to kind of fit together for me, like a piece of Lego. It's
yeah.
almost like they're very similar things. What am I trying to say here? Which one of the two is easiest to do?
Remote viewing, easily. I think the key thing about astral projection, difficult thing about astral projection is to become dissociated from your body, to get that feeling of separation. It's very, very hard to do. And if you look at the preamble on the Monroe site about going out there and doing it, what they'll say is that you are not guaranteed to have an out of body experience. It's not always the case, and these are arbitrary states of being that aren't always available to everybody, and what one person might experience, another person might experience in a different way, in a completely different metaphor. And this is why I talk about all of this being, these are just arbitrary states and tools in our ability to expand our minds and our consciousness. And why we need to do that is because it's important for humanity to extend and reach out. Um, the biggest facilitator for that is at the moment is good old Mr. Musk. He wants to get us moving. He wants to get us to be
Just
a
about to
planetary.
say that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he wants us to be brilliant. and he wants us to be exchanging information at a much greater rate, because talking and showing each other photographs is not quick enough, you know. So you've got the Neuralink. He's
Does that not
absolutely
worry you?
right with those. No.
No, you definitely think that that's the way that we need to do. We need to kind of what they call it, transcend with the technology. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
You think?
Evolve.
Yeah.
I
He
do.
kind of said we need to go with it, or it takes over us.
Yeah, yeah. He's right, and he's right. But the technology, if we didn't develop planes, we wouldn't be if we didn't develop cars so that we can travel, trains, planes, we would have had to wait a few million years for us to evolve wings. And it's the same with all of these consciousness things. With if remote viewing does actually work, are we developed enough as a species to actually do it? Are there species out there that do? Is this a goal for us? Do we need to be able to be sharing information and data in a better way? All of these questions, they're really, really big questions. And you don't get progress without regress. The
I
internet's
agree.
caused us all kinds of problems, you know, and we
Definitely.
do have to move forward gently.
But
But
when
I see the opportunities. Yeah.
yeah, I get the opportunity of merging with AI,
Mhm.
but especially as somebody who, a spiritual person, somebody who, trained in the martial arts, you've traveled the world seeking like a path, looking for answers.
Mm.
Do you not think that merging with the technology part of this might take away these abilities that we have as human beings? Because and Steve said it earlier. So are they just dreams? These things, but it seems from we spoke a few times now, Rich, and for yourself, it seems that this is definitely something that is like a lost art.
But
You went out to
I
seek answers.
and
It,
the answers are that they are dreams, but they're not just dreams. Dreams are incredibly, incredibly important. As I said before, a, a a dream is the product of our imagination, and it's our imagination that leads the way. It's our ability to plan. It's our ability to mitigate risk. It's our ability to seize opportunities. It is everything, our imagination. Um,
so then,
and it's the
Rich,
most, yeah.
from what you were just saying then, with the neural link, do you not think something
Mhm.
like that would interfere with the ability to be able to do what you do? I mean, saying it's the right thing for humanity, that's kind of like, I've been thinking this myself. Is it the right thing? It could be amazing, all of a sudden you can just make like the Matrix. You can, I think we may have
Mhm.
spoke about this before. I can
Absolutely.
do kung fu. You might know kung fu, but your body would not be able to do kung fu. But
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
would
Exactly.
it get rid of people that have these special abilities to be able to astral project, to be able to remote view? Will it enhance that, or do you think it would you not be worried that, okay, I get this implant,
Mhm.
that's going to get rid of whatever I could do before?
Um, I don't think we know the answers to that until we're there. My thoughts, though, about all of this are to do with really our abilities to to get and share information and data. What would be really brilliant is for me to be able to sit in have a discussion with you and know what you're feeling as well. And for me, that would be the most amazing thing, to be able to talk to people and really know what they're feeling.
But that could have a massive
And if
negative.
somebody's
because-
has a meaningful experience, yeah, and people have imagine how much more of a caring society we would be if somebody sat down and said, you know, I have this. Let's say, for instance, if somebody has schizophrenia or something like that, and they can share with you how they feel, or somebody has autism and they can share with you what the information overload feels like, how much more sympathy we would have for these people, you know, and maybe we would even be able to help them. You know, it has fantastic potential.
I
It
I
really
agree, and at
does.
the same time,
And the
I
ability to
disagree
share concepts. Yeah.
because I think it's
Mm.
dangerous.
Okay. Yeah. Why do you think that? Why do you think that? Yeah.
Well, put it this way: what if I'm interviewing a guy and I think you're fucking bonkers? You know, what if there's somebody again? What if there's a guest that I have on and we're doing this Neuralink interview, and this guy he's just thinking, I know you don't like me, I'm going. But
Yeah.
that
But
if you take that into,
yeah.
if you take that into society, will it make us all come together, or will it cause carnage?
Well, this is where consent's important. That's all.
Yeah.
So you would go, we would sit there and we would talk for a while, and we would get to know each other, and we would get to trust each other, and then we might go, okay, is it time? And you go, yeah, I think we know each other well enough. Okay, click, and you take the firewall off, and and that's how it'll work. And you will have your friends and your close friends who you'll be able to take the firewall off, and you'll be able to exchange with, you know, and you will have people that you don't, you know, and this is where barriers happen, and this is where consent is, kind of like we're doing now at the moment. We're trying to work out with relationships generally.
So it's kind of knocked me for six, this one, but in a good way. Because it's making the conversation just that a little bit more interesting for me, because I like to have a bit of a debate, and it's not often I do. But this is one thing. We've had a few conversations now, Rich, and I've always agreed, but with this one, I'm kind of like I'm on the
Yeah,
fence
sure.
with this.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. You know,
I definitely wouldn't
I've given
want
you my point of
AI.
view.
No. I definitely wouldn't want AI though. Like in my brain, you know.
Mm.
I definitely wouldn't want my wife to know what I'm thinking. That's dangerous.
Yeah,
That's
that is
divorce.
dangerous. It could be. It could be. But do you know what? If you know what she's thinking, maybe
I'll
it's
be
a
a better
whole new
husband.
world.
Maybe it is.
You know,
So maybe I'll start feeling young again. Do you know something though? If it, I mean, you know this, and quite a few of the audience know this. I'm dyslexic as they come, which is why I struggle to read the chat. But if it cured that, I'll take it. I say take it, inject it, wherever it is. It's genius what he's doing with the whole Starlink, and then it's going to be interlinked with this at some point. Isn't it? I mean, that is next level. But then they're still sending. We're still using the same technology that we used.
Yeah,
years and years
absolutely.
ago. You know when
And
it
this is what
when it comes to going to space.
and this is what disappoints me. Do you know what I mean? And you watch? Did you watch the latest Starship go
Yes.
up and it landed, and
No,
that's
no way I'd get on
fantastic.
board that.
That is fantastic. It's such a spectacle, and at the same time, you look at that and you think to yourself, yeah, but it's that big because they've had to load it up with fuel and they've had to burn it, and it's Newton's third law, which was developed in the 1700s, and we're still relying on standing on something and throwing stuff behind you to make yourself go forward. And when you look at gimbal, FLIR, and go fast videos, they're not relying on Newton's third law. They're definitely not. There's no thrust there. They are moving. They are defying gravity, and they are moving at their own volition. That's where we need to be. We need to
speaking about
stop
that before.
burning stuff. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. We do, don't we? We need and Elon's doing fantastic stuff. And I do wonder, do you know when he was on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
When he was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was asking him, what about have you seen the three the Nimitz videos and the Roosevelt? And he was going, no, I haven't seen them. And everyone sat there and went, of course he's seen them. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
do
that was a load
wonder
of rubbish.
whether in his own head he knows that he's spending billions and billions refining and developing technology that might be out of date in 10, 15 years time, if we ever decide to work out what those things are actually doing in those videos. You know, if somebody's going to come out, yeah.
So we were speaking before about your argument with Mick West and mine. So you definitely think when you see that those little clips, that to you is standout evidence of something that is extraterrestrial, not just a UFO.
It's my belief. I think they've been very clever. I think what Elizondo and the rest of TTSA have done is they've pulled an absolute blinder. If you've watched, what they've done is they've taken 3 videos, and the 3 videos look like they could be extraterrestrial in the way that they're behaving. They could do. Okay, and they've given us the bare minimum to give us that impression. And then what they've done is they've interviewed a pilot. They've interviewed a couple of pilots. They've interviewed radar operators, and all of their testimony isn't backed up by those 3 videos. And I think they've done that on purpose. And I think the reason why they've done that on purpose is so that they don't fluster people, so that there's that doubt, that there's still they're still sowing a seed of doubt in people's minds, because they don't want to panic people. Because I think whatever they've gone onto the History Channel and they've talked about threat all the way through it. And I think if the information that they showed was absolutely irrefutable, they would cause panic. So my question always would be to Lou and everybody is, what specific risks have they identified when they're calling them out as threats? And why are they only presenting part of the data? Specifically when he sat there on Mick West's show and said, you haven't seen all of the data.
Yeah. In other words, you haven't seen the rest of the footage.
Exactly. So they've held back a ton of stuff. And I think they've done that on purpose. I do. I genuinely do. that they're trying not to be reckless in this disclosure. That they still want to cast reasonable doubt. That's my view on it anyway. I could be wrong.
I mean, when we say threat, they say it's a threat because it's in their airspace, and there is risk there. It is in there. They don't know what it is, and they always kind of. I mean, Lou never kind of says the word alien. He doesn't even really imply it. I think he's maybe mentioned it a couple of times that it could possibly be that, but he tends to lead towards, when he says threat, that it may, the big risk is that it is something that's not theirs. It's not from the US. It's the Russians. It's
Oh
China.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
That's
possibly,
the
yeah, yeah.
that's the because then. But I definitely do not subscribe to that, because I think if that would be the case, we'd get more. We'd know more by now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Marco Rubio said it himself, didn't he? One of the senators there. He said that it's almost preferable that it's aliens. They would rather have it be aliens than
Definitely.
for it to be somebody like China or Russia or even one of the allies. I think it would scare the Americans livid if it turned out that the British had it. Even though we're friends, it would still scare people that if somebody else had something like that, because it's world takeover technology, isn't it? It's phenomenal.
So in regards to and I said we would touch on this, but we've kind of gone down that route anyway, so thank you. With the UFO phenomenon, I can't say that word, so I won't say it. You know what I mean? The UFO thing, yeah. The aliens, whatever you want to call them. People seem to confuse astral projection with being abducted by aliens. Would you say that? Have you ever thought that the two could be linked? Like, say that say an abduction. Maybe the person actually doesn't leave the bed in the first place. For example, say these aliens, they have these incredible minds, and they can just tap into whatever they want to do, with their ray beams or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't need to take us physically, but they can. And maybe that goes down to the people, when people are seeing, like, maybe some people that see shadow figures in the room or whatever. But these things don't take us physically; they take us kind of mentally. They take that part of you that leaves your body, and when you can turn around and see your body, maybe the meat, that's just, to them, it's just a vessel. And do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah. I get what you're getting at. I can't help thinking, and as I say, this is just a sneaky thing. It's nothing. It's just a little feeling, and it could be wrong. But what I think happens if we are being influenced by aliens, and I say this is an if, it would be very easy for them to go, okay, we need to speak, we need to engage with the humans at some point for whatever reason they want to, if they want to. But if they want us to engage, if they need us to join a community, then we need to hit a certain standard. And one of the standards will be, are we mentally coherent enough to accept a visitation? And I do wonder whether some of the experiences that people are having are almost like surveys. And what they do is, every few months or every year or so, what they do, they monitor a ton of people, give them an experience, look at how they're reacting, and go, well, we did 1,000 people tonight, and out of 1,000, 300 of them are terrified, a couple of them are traumatized, and the rest are curious. That's still not enough. If we extrapolate that out, that would still cause too much trouble. We need to wait a little bit longer. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like they're doing a survey, taking a census of how people feel.
But
You
do
know,
you definitely think do you definitely think it is aliens? That's what.
what abductions? No, I don't. But I think if it is, it'll be it's a survey, it's a test. We're just being observed. I can't see anything more than that. I genuinely don't think this is, and I say this is my belief, I don't think we have anything that they would want other than they might, from a feeling of philanthropy, want to lift us up. You know, because that's what highly advanced civilizations would do. They would want to bring people along.
Would they though? I mean, you've seen Star
I
Trek.
don't know. Which one?
Well, no, well, the laws of Star Trek, where it's
the Prime Directive. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of have that theory that's what they would have. Don't mess up, because if you're not ready for it as a civilization, do we have the right to fiddle?
Well, maybe they have a right once we hit a certain level, and I think below that, they've probably got some threshold that we need to hit before they would engage. And I think up until then we're pond life, and then there's a moment maybe where whether we acquire some technology, whether we stop behaving in certain ways, that kind of thing. But
Get your hand off the
there's a
nuke
line.
button.
Yeah. There's a line, isn't there? And they want us to cross it. And once we've crossed it, they'll engage. But I do think there's a lot, and the forums fill up with people like they're saying, number one, they might want to eat us. Number two, they want our planet for resources, or they want to make us slaves and things like that. Well, let's be brutally honest here. A civilization that far advanced in ours wouldn't want anything from us other than purely observing us, because they would have more power than we could ever have, because they can gather it from as many stars as they want. Someone says, what about the resources on our planet? There's one or two asteroids out in our own asteroid belt that's got more minerals. There's one asteroid with more minerals on it that's worth more than all of the money in the world. There's an enormous abundance of energy and matter out in space, and if you're suitably advanced, you can take that energy and make that matter into anything you want. Why would they want anything from us? It just doesn't make sense. So in the end of the day, it's just got to be it's interest, it's observation. I don't think we have anything that they want.
So, in regards to your beliefs in aliens, and your beliefs in the, well, I don't know. I don't actually know what your beliefs are when it comes to the spiritual side, but it seems to me, and it always has done, that you seem to have very much that kind of spiritual side to you, like with the martial arts, with the seeking out and going to the Ramon Center, and doing the astral projection when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that both can coexist in terms of other life forms, civilizations out in the universe, and yet
Absolutely.
a higher being.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so little that we know about the universe. We don't even know how gravity works. You
No,
know, we
don't say that to flat earthers.
it's all very well, but we don't we we play at this at the moment, and I'm sure there are people, as I say, I use the term loosely. There are entities out there that have figured out a damn sight more than we have, and uh, we we're we're in we're speeding up our knowledge. I mean, I think only recently that someone's turned in a paper in Science to suggest that the Hubble constant, that is the rate that the universe is expanding, isn't a constant, and it's expanding in certain places faster than in others. And I'm so surprised that hasn't been theorized and properly summarized
Shut this
earlier.
door, Rich.
Yeah. So let's have a look at these things. So let's have a quick look. If we were pond life, then why do they observe us? Do we ever look at the pond and look at the frogs and say if they built boats, then we will leave them be for the moment? It's a good question, Hober Mallow. I don't know. We do observe the life in our planet. People like David Attenborough love to observe animals just for the sheer joy of it. Do they want to interact with them? No, but we do want to interact with the higher primates, and we have done.
The thing is, you don't see the frogs firing nuclear weapons at each other in the pond, do you?
No, true.
Though
true.
you do sometimes get, and if anybody's ever had one that's got a pond, my mum and dad have a pond, a heron that comes in and eats all the fish, which is almost like someone's dropped a nuke on the pond. The where do you plan to go next with this in terms of? So you're very much seeking out the UFO community. You learned how to astral project when you were very young by accident, and in 2009 you went to the Ramon Center, Monroe Institute, to learn to remote view. What's next?
I would like to get involved more in the UFO community. I think there is a lot to be done to standardize what we're doing to bring people together. I think there's a lot of people that talk about the same thing, but they use different words and they use different frameworks. For instance, you have a ton of people that want to call aliens angels or demons or other things like that. And maybe we're wrong just by calling them aliens, but we've got to start coalescing and coming together. And that is done not by shutting people out, which is what I see very often, but by sowing seeds of doubt. So where you have people with ingrained, deeply entrenched beliefs, then what you have to say is, okay, it's okay to have that belief, but call it a belief, be honest about it. And you might have the skeptics that are incredibly skeptical. What you have to say is that is a belief too, and we have to find a middle ground where our data is. And we look at the data and we say, we have to look at that data objectively together and start to become credible to the rest of our society. And the reason why we need to do that is because society soon is going to need us. They're going to need some help when all of this information starts being disseminated by the military and the government. Hopefully, in a few months' time, we're going to have some reports from the secret services and the military in terms of some of the sightings that they've seen.
Do you have
They
faith
might need
that,
our help.
do you have faith that we are going to get like a significant uplift of information that comes from this?
With my cynical head, no. My cynical head says that what we will get is a kind of stock answer that says we're not sure about this phenomenon. What we need is more information. There might be a classified section of that report where it says we're more sure than that, but we still need more information. But at the end of the day, we are going to have to move. We are going to have to expand as a species, and we have to take everybody with us. We can't leave people behind, and we can't exclude people. I've seen too many times on the internet people getting shut down and people getting pushed away from perfectly decent conversations, and we have to start living with each other, and we have to start
I mean,
working together.
we may disagree on certain certain topics or somebody else's belief, but we have, in order to understand what somebody else is talking about, you have to listen to them.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing that I'm trying to do with this channel, is to get all sorts of different people on. You know, there has been people on that I thought, really? And they know they are. But at the same time, there's people that are fascinating in the field. There's people that could add something very extremely beneficial to our understanding when it comes to finding out what all this is, whether it is alien, whether it's fifth dimensional beings, whether it's God. You know, I have no idea.
Exactly.
I really have no idea.
But it's the questions that unite us.
Yeah.
It's dogma that's pulling us apart, and we need to park the dogma and say, let's work together, and let's find what unites us. And we rope in the scientists by saying, we have reasonable doubt, help us with that doubt. It's such an interesting time. It really is.
Do you think we'll see it in our lifetime? Disclosure. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about an alien, a ship.
I think will we see another ship? Will we see ships and things like that? I don't know. Will we get disclosure? I think it's becoming increasingly possible. I think a lot hangs on this report that comes in. I'd like to know. I would like to see the content of that report before making a snap decision on that. But my gut feeling is that maybe in about sort of like 5 years, we'll get something. I don't want to drag politics into it, but politics is playing a huge factor at the moment. And it was a previous Democrat influence that was driving disclosure. I think we have another Democrat in the House in America, but a very different feeling from the previous one. And that's perhaps for another discussion, because the Americans are leading this, but at the same time, there is also China, and China, I think, dragged a ton of people from all over the world to have some kind of UFO symposium in 2019, and that's another important thing. Are we going to see an escalation in this between America and China in terms of that? Who owns that narrative going forward?
Well, that's it as well. It's
Yeah.
interesting. The two big countries.
Mhm.
They're both kind of like they've got a big interest in the UFOs.
And it's clear that the bigger industries in the bigger interest is in the West, but I think with anything else, China will catch up fast, and they'll lasso in a lot of the smaller countries into it as well, which is what they're doing already. So clocks are ticking, chaps.
It is. Well, Rich, we've gone for an hour and 35 minutes, and I want to get you back on again, mate, because there's that much that probably didn't even touch on. But you did send me a audio tape.
Oh, did you listen to it? How did it go?
I haven't yet. I
right,
keep
okay.
meaning to. I've got it saved. It's on my Mac.
Oh,
So
okay.
I am going to get that listened to.
Headphones.
It's just kind of reminded me, and it's and is this what helps you kind of?
No, that one's called Centered Calm, and it helps me relax and just vroom. You'll enjoy it. I promise. It's nothing huge. Yeah.
Well, if it helps me sleep, that'd be great. But it's the time of the show where I am going to plug my new merch channel, my new merch store, which is in the description. So we have our first two buyers, which is Bob and Jeremy. That's obviously a joke. Little Photoshop job there, but they do suit Alien Addict t-shirts very well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But yeah, there is some. My store is not just about the my logo. Because I started out very young drawing aliens, monsters, this, that, and the other. So my store is going to have not just my logo, but I'm going to be coming out with different designs for the people that are into this kind of stuff. So my new little brand logo, people, if I can find it, which I think I've lost it. No, it's there. There we go. That is the brand logo that will be on like the back of t-shirts, mugs, this, that, and the other. Obviously, there's my normal logo, which is in the top corner up here. And there is t-shirts like this, phone cases, mugs. I had to have a battle with this because they did say the content could be copyrighted, so I had to prove that I drew it myself.
Just back in a minute. Hold on.
No worries, mate. And we have the shadow figure, which I made the first sale of that one yesterday. So guys, check it out. It is in the description. I am trying to spend a lot of time working these so you don't get bad quality stuff. It's real good stuff that I'm quite proud of. So check it out. But yes, it's about time. Did something with it. Doing something with the art. I'll just talk to Rich's couch. But no, it's I'm quite proud of it. I've gone through a bit of a hurdle this week. I've had all my stuff pretty much removed and managed to get it back again because I had to fight copyright. But yes, in fact, Rich, I will be coming back to you in a minute. So I'm just going to put you in the sidelines. But yeah, folks, thank you so much for everybody that's in the chat tonight. It's taken me a bit of getting back to doing interviews, to just kind of speaking to you guys. And I will be making some proper videos at some point as well. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, like, share if you're new to the channel. check out the merch store. I do have a Patreon channel if you want to support the channel further. But yeah, and I just want to say a massive Rich is back actually, so I'm going to say thank you to him. Rich, I'm going to end the show now, but thank you so much for joining us. And
No problem.
yeah, you're welcome anytime, my friend. So folks, good night, God bless.
Thanks
Find the
for having
bookstore
me.
bite.
See everyone.
Anytime, mate.